Good afternoon and welcome to another Health Talk with John T. Thank you for joining me on this journey to a happier, healthier you. Today I want to talk about building muscle for weight loss. Now I have some good news and I have some bad news. So here's the good news first. If you have been carrying a lot of weight for a long time, you have actually built up some muscle density already because your muscles have had to compensate for carrying all that weight. So, and if not, you're probably not carrying a huge amount of load and might find movement easier than somebody who is extremely overweight. So, some things to remember is that you don't have to overdo it on exercise. In fact, if it's difficult to move, sometimes just getting out of bed and walking around the block for 5 minutes is the most beneficial for you. Or walking up and down the stairs, finding ways to improve, to do better than you did last time, because then you can measure, okay, I walked around the block once, last week, so let's see if I can walk 1.5 times around the block this week. Then you will have seen an improvement, and likely you will see some improvements in, weight management and increase of strength. That's how you build stronger. You have to do more. They call that progressive overload. Now, there are two different types of training. Well, actually, there's three. There's a combination. You have aerobic training, which is things like cardio, going for a run or swim or bike or whatever. Then you have resistance training, which is lifting weights, doing bicep curls or bench press. And then you can have the combination of the two. So you might do your weightlifting, 3 times a week. And then you'll go for your runs. You go for a weekly run. So I looked at a couple of studies that had similar results between an older group of people and a younger group of people in these different areas. So I'm just going to look at this. So with resistance training, there was actually a little bit of weight gain, which is not surprising. And it's not a lot of weight gain. And they did have other benefits. So there was a slight increase to endurance, which is measured through the VO2 max. So that's the body's ability to absorb and use oxygen throughout the cells. So they still had an increase in that ability. And there was also an increase in lean mass, and they did decrease in body fat. So even though there was a slight increase in weight, overall, when you really look at things, are they really overweight or just, a very high body fat percent? I just got the averages, so I don't really know these people personally. So, maybe they actually could have benefited from the extra pounds. It seems like they did. Looking at the aerobic group, they were moving, walking for about 12 miles a week. Okay, so there was no strength assessment on this group, and they did lose some weight. They also lost some lean muscle mass, which is to be expected. If you're not building muscle, that's what lean mass covers. Now, there are things that you could do at home to help with that. Actually, going for a bike ride helps develop your quads. Walking up the stairs or finding hills to climb on can actually help develop some muscle capacity, which will, over time, increase your resting metabolic rate, which means how much energy you're burning without doing anything. And see, that's the cool thing, is that more muscle helps you burn more energy if all you're doing is resting. So, muscle is important. Speaking of, let's look at the combination group. So they did, the walking for 12 miles a week plus the weightlifting. So they lost weight, and all of them had the increase in cardio. This combination group had an increase in lean mass, not as much as the strength training group. Same with strength, overall strength. But they had the lowest amount of fat loss. So really, some of the benefits were not as much as the strength group, but maybe this was the healthiest group overall. But one thing to note, it was the hardest to be consistent with. There was not as much adherence, so maybe people were just feeling tired from all the weight training and all the running or walking, whichever one they chose. But they still spent more time overall over the course of the week exercising. So now let's look at the older group. They basically had similar results to the other group. Now they also looked at things like frailty and bone density a little bit. Now there really wasn't a whole lot of results with that. Like a lot of elderly people, they fall and they tend to fracture or break bones. Now keep in mind, this is also an obese group. So they did find that there was an increase of quality of life, and the combination group had the highest result. They also had the most adherence to the program, which is kind of weird. Maybe they cared more about their health because they were in an older group. It's difficult to say. But there needs to be more research into nutrition to see if there can be other things that they can do to help avoid that frailty. Here's the potentially bad news. You might want to think about cutting back on your amount of salad dressing. That seems like a pretty small thing to change, doesn't it? I mean, let's go over the reasons why you might want to, include more salad and put some chicken or fish on top. First of all, the protein from whatever protein source you choose and the fiber from the vegetables is going to help you feel fuller for longer, especially the combination, right? So, and I mean, even if you choose something like spaghetti and meatballs, for example, right? Hopefully you're choosing whole wheat pasta. If not, not the biggest thing in the world. But what I want to look at is, the amount of sauce. Let's say you're doing sweet and sour meatballs with the spaghetti. How much sauce are you really going to put on there? I know I love to drown my salads in salad dressing. I don't have any sweet and sour sauce with me, but I have some Caesar dressing. And it says per 1 tablespoon is 80 calories. Now that doesn't look like a lot, but I gotta be honest with you, the amount of Caesar dressing that I like on a salad is probably 5 or 6 tablespoons. It's a lot, so it's probably the equivalent to half a meal. And at my size, that's holy cow. Even compared with olive oil, because it's actually suggested instead of salad dressing because it's lower in sugar. And even in terms of calories, per 2 tablespoons is 80 calories. So, that's like the same, basically, in twice as much. So this might be, a better alternative. You fry the fish or chicken with some spices and make it all tasty. Drizzle a little bit of olive oil. Maybe think about measuring out how much you're doing. I'm not going to give you an exact amount, but I think what you can try to do is do less than you did last time. I'm a big proponent of, making improvements rather than going, okay, strict, no salad dressing. Maybe think about, okay, last time I did 5 tablespoons, today I'm going to do 4. You can slowly get yourself into good habits this way and start to enjoy the taste of food naturally more instead of with, all this added sugar, which is going to, detract. It's a lot harder to fill up on really sweet foods because of the lack of fiber, which is going to make the sugar absorption much faster, which is what leads to a lot of the health problems from the sugar. So, really, the bad news isn't so bad, is it? Thanks for joining me on today's video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you have any suggestions, please leave me a comment. And don't forget to subscribe so you can catch next week's episode. Have a great week.